They turned me away at my own daughter's wedding. Me, Robert Mitchell, Purple Heart recipient. The man who took 3 bullets in Da Nang so people like them could sleep safe at night. And they looked me dead in the eye and said, I wasn't on the list. I found out about Sarah's wedding from my Uber driver. Think about that for a second. My daughter was getting married in 6 hours, and I heard it from a stranger named Carlos, who saw the venue address on his previous pickup. Big wedding at the Riverside Estate today, he said, making small talk. Mitchell, Ashford wedding. You know them. I knew them. One of them was my blood. But here is what they didn't know. Here is what Sarah and that snake she married, and his whole Silver Spoon family didn't understand. You don't close a door on a man who has spent 40 years learning how to open them. And when you humiliate a father in front of 100 guests, when you make him beg to see his own child say, I do, well, you better pray he has forgotten everything. The Marines taught him about patience, planning, and payback. They should have prayed harder. The morning started normal enough. Thursday, the 14th of September, 2023. I was standing in my kitchen in my apartment in Lansing, Michigan, drinking coffee that tasted like burnt regret and staring at a phone that never rang. The place wasn't much. 1 bedroom, cracked linoleum, a view of the parking lot where teenagers sold weed after dark. But it was mine, paid for with my disability check, and what was left of my pride. I hadn't spoken to Sarah in 3 years, not since she told me she was embarrassed by me. That word, embarrassed, like I was some stain she couldn't scrub out. I remember her sitting across from me at that Denny's, her designer purse taking up half the booth, checking her phone every 30 seconds. She'd just started dating Preston Ashford then. Old money, new attitude. Dad, you have to understand, Preston's family is different. They have expectations. Expectations, I'd said. What the hell does that mean? She wouldn't look at me. It means showing up to his parents' country club in your old Marine jacket and telling war stories isn't appropriate. I'd worn that jacket with honor. Still did. Still do. The leather was worn soft as butter. And yeah, maybe it had seen better days. But every scuff mark had a story. Every tear was a memory I'd earned. But to Sarah, it was just old. Like me. That was the last real conversation we had. After that, just text messages. Short ones. Getting shorter. Then nothing at all. So when Carlos mentioned the wedding, something inside me cracked wide open. What time? I asked him. He glanced at me in the rear view. They had to be there by 3, setting up since morning, I think. Must be a big deal. 3 o'clock. I checked my watch. 8:47 a.m. I had 6 hours to decide if I was the kind of father who let his daughter get married without him, or the kind who showed up uninvited. Took me about 6 seconds to choose. But the real question wasn't whether I'd go. The real question was what I'd find when I got there. Because Sarah hadn't just stopped talking to me. She'd stopped existing in my world entirely, changed her number, blocked me on Facebook. I'd sent Christmas cards to her last known address for 2 years straight. They all came back stamped return to sender. You don't do that to someone unless you are hiding something, unless you are ashamed, or unless someone's making you choose between your past and your future. I knew which one Preston Ashford represented, and I knew, even then, that he'd already won. But I didn't know how much I'd lost until I got there. I put on my best clothes. Only had 1 suit, bought it in 1998 for my mother's funeral. Navy blue, smelled like mothballs and old decisions. The pants were tight around the waist now. 65 comes at you fast. And the VA cafeteria isn't known for healthy eating. But I looked decent, respectable. I shaved, put on cologne, the cheap stuff from Walgreens. But still, I was trying. I called another Uber. Couldn't afford it. Not really. But what was I going to do? Take the bus to my daughter's wedding, show up sweating, and 2 hours late. The driver was a young woman this time. Quiet, didn't try to make conversation. I was grateful. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, from something else. Something that felt like hope and tasted like poison. The Riverside estate was 40 minutes outside Lansing. I watched the suburbs give way to farmland, then to rolling hills, then to the kind of manicured wealth that makes you feel poor just looking at it. Stone walls, iron gates, actual horses in actual pastures. This was Preston's world. This was where Sarah had gone. This was where I'd never belonged. The estate itself looked like something from a movie. White columns, massive tent in the back, waiters in bow ties carrying champagne on silver trays, cars in the parking lot that cost more than I'd made in the last 5 years combined. Mercedes, BMW, a Bentley. I saw an actual Bentley. My Uber dropped me at the entrance. The driver gave me a look that said she knew I didn't belong here. I gave her a $20 tip I couldn't afford and walked toward the tent. That is when I saw them. 2 men in suits, not wedding guests, security, standing at the entrance like they were guarding Fort Knox instead of a party. They clocked me the second I got within 50 feet. I could see them talking into their earpieces, watch their body language shift from relaxed to alert. I kept walking. What else was I going to do? "Excuse me, sir." The taller one stepped forward, smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Can I help you?" "I am here for the wedding," I said, kept my voice steady, looked him in the eye. "I am the bride's father." The smile vanished. He glanced at his partner. Something passed between them, something I didn't like. "What is your name, sir?" "Robert Mitchell." He pulled out a tablet, scrolled through it, took longer than it should have. Finally looked up. "I am sorry, sir. You are not on the guest list." The words hit me like a rifle butt to the chest. Not on the list. My own daughter's wedding, and I wasn't on the list. "There must be a mistake," I said, heard the desperation in my voice, hated it. "I am her father. Sarah Mitchell. She is the bride. I understand, sir, but without an invitation, I don't need an invitation. I am her father." The second guard moved closer now, bigger than the first. Arms crossed. This wasn't a conversation anymore. This was a removal waiting to happen. "Sir, I am going to have to ask you to leave. I just want to see my daughter, just for a minute, just to see her." God, I was begging these two cops to let me see Sarah, and they were looking at me like I was some kind of threat, like I was the problem. "Sir, please don't make this difficult." People were starting to notice. Guests in their expensive dresses and rental tuxedos, turning to look at the old man in the moth. Eton suit arguing with security. I saw their faces, saw the judgment, the pity, the discomfort. And then I saw her, Sarah. She was standing near the tent entrance, talking to a woman in a purple dress. She looked beautiful, looked like her mother. The wedding dress was white lace and pearls, probably cost more than my car. Her hair was up. Professional makeup. She looked happy. She looked happy. She looked perfect. And then she turned and saw me. Our eyes met across 30 yards of manicured lawn. I raised my hand, started to smile, started to move toward her. She turned away, just turned away like she hadn't seen me, like I was invisible. "Sarah," I called out. Didn't care anymore who heard. "Sarah, it is Dad." She walked faster, disappeared into the tent. The woman in purple glanced at me, then followed her inside. The security guard's hand was on my elbow now, firm professional. "Sir, you need to leave now. Get your hand off me, sir." I said, "Get your goddamn hand off me." My voice came out louder than I intended, harder, the Marine voice. The one that made privates straighten up and shut up. The guard stepped back, hand moving toward his belt, toward whatever weapon he had there. "Dad, stop." I turned. Preston Ashford was walking toward me, 28 years old, 6'2", gym muscles, Hair that looked like it cost $100 to cut. He was wearing a tuxedo that probably cost more than my monthly rent. His face had that particular expression I'd seen 1,000 times. The look people give homeless veterans. Pity mixed with disgust, mixed with fear. "Preston," I said. "I just want to see Sarah, just for a minute." He stopped about 10 feet away, close enough to talk, far enough to keep his hands clean. "She doesn't want to see you," he said. His voice was calm, reasonable. The kind of calm that makes you feel crazy for being upset. "I am sorry, Robert, but you weren't invited for a reason." "What reason?" The words came out like broken glass. What reason could she possibly have? Preston glanced at the guards, gave them a small nod. They moved in closer, bracketing me. Then he looked back at me, and for just a second, I saw something in his eyes, something cold, something that enjoyed this. "You are an embarrassment," he said quietly. "To her, to this family, she is starting a new life, and you are not part of it. You haven't been for years, so do yourself a favor and accept it." He turned to walk away. "She is my daughter," I said. My voice cracked. "Hated that too. She is my blood." Preston stopped, looked back over his shoulder. "No," he said. "She is my wife now, and she doesn't want you here." The guards grabbed my arms, started walking me back toward the parking lot. I didn't fight. What was the point? The damage was done. The humiliation was complete. 100 people had just watched me get thrown out of my own daughter's wedding, like some drunk uncle. Nobody wanted around. They walked me all the way to the road, stood there while I called another Uber, waited with me in silence until the car arrived. I didn't look at them, didn't look at anything, just stared at my shoes, and wondered when exactly my life had become this. The Uber driver didn't ask questions. I was grateful. Saturday in the back seat and watched the estate disappear in the side mirror. My phone buzzed once. A text from a number I didn't recognize. "Stop trying to contact Sarah. This is your only warning." Preston, I stared at that message for 10 miles. Read it over and over. Let every word sink in like shrapnel. And that is when something inside me changed. You know what they taught us in the Marines? They taught us that every man has a breaking point. Some point where the old rules stop applying, where the person you used to be dies and someone new takes their place. I'd seen it happen to good men in Vietnam. Watched them transform from scared kids into something harder, something necessary. I thought I'd left that version of myself in the jungle 40 years ago. I was wrong, because sitting in that Uber, reading Preston's threat, watching my daughter's wedding venue fade into the distance, I realized something. I realized that I'd spent 3 years being sad, being hurt, being the rejected father who'd just accepted his fate. And I was done. Done being quiet. Done being invisible. Done letting Preston Ashford and his country club family erase me like I'd never existed. If Sarah wanted me out of her life, fine. She was an adult. She could make that choice. But Preston had made this personal. Preston had enjoyed watching me beg, had sent me a threat like I was some kind of problem he could handle with a text message. He had no idea who he was threatening. See, Preston Ashford had money. He had connections. He had a family name that opened doors and a smile that made people trust him. He'd probably never struggled for anything in his entire life. Never had to fight for respect or earn his place in the world. Me, I had nothing. No money, no connections, no family anymore, apparently. But I had skills. 40 years ago, they sent me to a jungle on the other side of the world and told me to survive, to hunt, to plan, to execute missions against enemies who knew the terrain better than I ever would. And I'd done it. I'd done things I never talked about, things that kept me awake at night even now, things that had earned me 3 medals and a lifetime of nightmares. Preston thought he'd won. Thought he'd gotten rid of the embarrassing father-in-law. Thought he could just erase me with security guards and text messages. He thought wrong. I got home around 7 p.m. The apartment felt smaller than usual, darker. I stood in the kitchen drinking water straight from the tap and staring at nothing. My hands had stopped shaking. That was good. Clear head. Steady hands. That is what you need when you are planning an operation. Because that is what this was now. An operation. I opened my closet, pushed past the winter coats and old uniforms I couldn't bring myself to throw away. In the back, wrapped in an old t-shirt, I found what I was looking for. A notebook. Green canvas cover standard issue. I'd kept it since Vietnam. Pages filled with notes, observations, lessons learned. I opened to a blank page, started writing. Target Preston Ashford objective, total destruction rules of engagement. None. My phone rang. I almost didn't answer. Didn't recognize the number, but something made me pick up. Bob Mitchell? The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. Older, rough around the edges. Who is this? Tommy Reeves. From Charlie Company. Tommy Reeves. Jesus. I hadn't heard that name in 30 years. We'd served together in 71. Went through hell together. Lost touch after we got stateside. Tommy, how'd you get my number? Tracked you down through the VOA. Listen, I am in Michigan for a few days. Thought maybe we could grab a beer. Talk about old times. Old times. The jungle. The missions. The things we'd done that we never talked about. Yeah, I said, looking at my notebook. At Preston's name written at the top. Yeah, I could use a beer. There is something I wanted to talk to you about anyway. Something that might interest you. What is that? Tommy paused. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, gotten quieter, more serious. How much do you know about your son-in-law's family business? I sat down. What are you talking about? The Ashfords, Preston's father, William. I've been doing some digging for a client. Private investigation work, you know. Pays better than my pension. And Bob, there is some things about that family you need to know. Things your daughter definitely doesn't know. My heart was beating faster now. Tell me. Not over the phone. McGinty's pub on Saginaw Street, 7 p.m. And Bob? Yeah. Bring that notebook I know you still keep, the green one. Because what I am about to tell you, you are going to want to write it down. He hung up. I sat there in the darkness of my apartment, holding my phone, staring at Preston's name in my notebook. And, for the first time since they'd thrown me out of that wedding, I smiled. You ever have one of those moments where you realize the universe is handing you exactly what you need exactly when you need it? Where coincidence feels like destiny. This was that moment. Preston had humiliated me, had turned my daughter against me, had threatened me like I was nothing. But he'd made one critical mistake. He'd assumed I was harmless. Assumed I was just some broken-down old veteran who'd accept defeat and fade away quietly. He'd assumed wrong. And now Tommy Reeves, a man who knew exactly what I was capable of, a man who'd seen me operate in situations where failure meant death, was about to tell me something about the Ashford family. Something Sarah didn't know. I opened my notebook again. Under Preston's name, I added a new line. Phase 1, Intelligence Gathering Contact. Tommy Reeves, 1900 hours. McGinty's pub objective, identify vulnerabilities. Build target profile. Then I went to my bedroom, opened the bottom drawer of my dresser. Underneath old t-shirts and forgotten socks, I found another wrapped bundle, heavier than the notebook. I unwrapped it slowly, my service pistol. M1911, cleaned and maintained every month for 40 years, even though I hadn't fired it since 1973. Muscle memory, military discipline. Some habits you never break. I checked the action, smooth as silk, held it in my hand and felt the weight, the balance, the familiar coldness of steel that had saved my life more times than I could count. Then I wrapped it back up, put it away. Not yet, maybe not ever. This wasn't about violence. This was about something more permanent, more complete. This was about justice. I spent that night doing what I did best: research, preparation. I pulled up everything I could find on Preston Ashford online, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. His life was an open book for anyone who wanted to read it. And what I read made my blood boil. Private schools, Ivy League University, MBA from Wharton. Never worked a real job in his life. Went straight from graduation to a VP position at his father's company, Ashford Capital Management, investment firm, billions under management. His social media was full of exactly what you'd expect. Vacation photos from places I'd never afford to visit. Restaurants where a single meal cost more than my monthly food budget. Golf, tennis, wine tastings, the kind of life where actual problems didn't exist. And there, scattered throughout, were photos of Sarah, my daughter, smiling in front of French restaurants, wearing jewelry I'd never be able to buy her, standing next to Preston's arm, looking happy, looking like she'd found exactly what she wanted, looking like she'd forgotten where she came from. One photo caught my attention. Christmas party, last December. Sarah in a red dress, Preston in a tuxedo, surrounded by people who looked like they'd never worried about money in their entire lives. The caption read, "Blessed to celebrate another year with my beautiful fiancé and the Ashford family. Here is to new beginnings." New beginnings. That is what I was to them. The old beginning that needed to be erased. I zoomed in on Sarah's face, really looked at it, and for just a second, I saw something. Something in her eyes. Something that didn't match the smile. She looked tired, or scared, or I was seeing what I wanted to see, trying to convince myself she was unhappy so I could feel better about being excluded. I closed my laptop, couldn't look anymore. The truth I didn't want to admit. Part of me understood why Sarah had cut me off. I wasn't an easy father, never had been. The war had changed me, made me harder, made me distant. Her mother had tried to bridge that gap for years before the cancer took her. After she died, it was just me and Sarah. And I didn't know how to be what she needed. I was good at following orders. Good at combat. Good at survival. I was terrible at being a dad. Sarah had grown up watching me struggle, watching me drink too much, watching me wake up screaming from nightmares I couldn't explain. She'd been the one who found me that night I'd taken too many pills, who'd called 911, who'd ridden with me in the ambulance. She was 14. No kid should have to do that. No kid should have to be the parent. So yeah, I understood why she'd run when she met Preston, why she'd grabbed onto his stable, wealthy, normal family with both hands, why she'd wanted a fresh start. What I didn't understand was why she had to erase me completely, why she couldn't just keep me at a distance, why the only option was total exile. Unless it wasn't her choice. Unless someone had convinced her that cutting me off was necessary, that I was dangerous, that I was an embarrassment that would ruin everything. Unless Preston had spent 3 years systematically turning my daughter against me. My phone buzzed. Another text, this time from Tommy. "Something else you should know. The Ashfords filed a restraining order against you 2 months ago. It got rejected for lack of evidence. But they tried. Preston's been building a case that you are a threat. Thought you should be aware before tomorrow. I read that message 3 times. A restraining order. They tried to get a legal document that would have prevented me from ever contacting Sarah again. That would have made me a criminal if I'd shown up at that wedding. It got rejected. But they'd tried. Preston had been planning this. Planning to remove me from Sarah's life completely. Not just socially, legally. And that meant he was afraid of something. Meant he saw me as an actual threat. Not physically. I'd never hurt Sarah. So what was he afraid of? What did he think I might discover? I texted Tommy back. I'll be there at 6:30. And Tommy, thank you. His response came immediately. Don't thank me yet, Bob. What I have to tell you, it is going to change everything. See you tomorrow. Semper Fi, Semper Fi. Always faithful, the Marine Corps motto. Some bonds don't break, even after 40 years. I didn't sleep that night. Just lay in bed staring at the ceiling, my mind running through scenarios, plans, possibilities. Preston thought he'd won, thought he'd neutralized the problem, thought the embarrassing father-in-law had been dealt with. We don't quit because the odds are against us. We don't surrender because the fight looks unwinnable. We dig in, we adapt, we find another way, and we never ever forget. By the time the sun came up Friday morning, I'd filled 6 pages in my notebook. Names, connections, questions, a framework for what came next. Preston Ashford had humiliated me in front of 100 people, had taken my daughter, had tried to erase me from existence. Now it was my turn. And unlike him, I didn't need lawyers or security guards or family money to fight my battles. I just needed information, patience, and the skills I'd learned in a jungle 40 years ago. Skills I'd hoped I'd never have to use again. McGinty's pub smelled like stale beer and 40 years of cigarette smoke that no amount of cleaning could erase. I got there at 6:15. Old habit. Always arrive early. Survey the terrain. Identify exits. I recognized him instantly even though he'd aged like the rest of us. Gray hair, deeper lines, but the same hard eyes, the same way of sitting with his back to the wall, watching the door. You never lose that. Bob, he stood up. We shook hands. His grip was still strong. Tommy. We sat. Didn't need to discuss it. You look good, he said. You are a terrible liar. He laughed. It sounded rusty. Yeah, well, we've earned the right to look like hell. The whiskey came. We drank in silence for a minute. 2 old soldiers remembering things neither of us would ever say out loud. So, I finally said, tell me about the Ashfords. Tommy's face changed. Got serious. He pulled out a manila folder from the bag beside him. Set it on the table between us. Before I show you this, what are you planning to do with this information? Does it matter? It does to me. Because what is in here? Bob, this is the kind of thing that destroys families. That ends marriages, that puts people in prison. He paused. Is that what you want? I thought about Sarah turning away from me, about Preston's cold smile, about being thrown out like garbage. I want the truth, I said. Whatever that looks like. Tommy studied my face, looking for something. Finally, he nodded and opened the folder. William Ashford, Preston's father, CEO of Ashford Capital Management. On paper, he is a legitimate businessman, philanthropist, sits on charity boards, donates to hospitals. The perfect pillar of the community. On paper. I said, on paper. Tommy pulled out a photograph, showed it to me. This is William at a restaurant in Detroit. 3 months ago. See the man he is having dinner with. Couldn't place the face. Who is it? Vincent Calabrese. You wouldn't know him. He keeps a low profile. But the FBI knows him. He is a money launderer, works for some very bad people out of Chicago. And he has been meeting with William Ashford regularly for the past 2 years. My stomach tightened. What are you saying? I am saying Ashford Capital Management is a front. Not entirely, but partially. They manage legitimate investments for legitimate clients, but they also move dirty money, millions of dollars from drug operations, human trafficking, illegal gambling. They clean it through complex investment schemes and offshore accounts. Make it look legal. Take a percentage for the service. He pulled out more photos, more documents, bank statements, wire transfers, names I didn't recognize but could guess what they meant. Preston, I said. Does he know? That is the question, isn't it? He works at the company. He is a VP. But whether he knows the full scope of what his father does, he shrugged. Hard to say. Plausible deniability is a powerful thing. I stared at the documents, at the evidence of crimes that should have put William Ashford in prison years ago. Why hasn't anyone arrested him? Because he is careful. Because he has lawyers and accountants who know exactly how to dance around the law. Because proving money laundering at this level requires years of investigation and airtight evidence. The FBI has been watching him, but they don't have enough yet. Tommy leaned forward. But here is where it gets interesting for you. I've been tracking the Ashford family's personal finances too, and there is something that doesn't add up. He pulled out another document. A property deed. 3 months ago, William bought a house, $6 million. Cash in Sarah's name. The words hit me like a punch. What? Sarah Mitchell Ashford is now the legal owner of a $6 million estate in Bloomfield Hills. Paid in full. No mortgage. The paperwork was done 2 weeks before the wedding. I couldn't process it. Why would he do that? Because if the FBI comes after him, they'll seize his assets. But they can't seize assets that aren't in his name. He has been moving money into Preston's name, into Sarah's name, into shell companies and trusts, protecting himself. And making Sarah an accessory, I said slowly. Potentially, if they can prove she knew where the money came from. My hands were shaking again. Not from fear this time, from rage. He is using her, I said. Preston married her and his father is using her as a shield. If the FBI comes, if everything falls apart, Sarah takes the fall too. Maybe. Or maybe she knows. Maybe she is complicit. The word came out hard. Final. Sarah wouldn't. She is not like that. Tommy looked at me with something like pity. Bob, people change when money gets involved. When comfort gets involved, when they're in love with someone who is lying to them. She doesn't know, I repeated. I know my daughter. Then you need to warn her. She won't listen to me. She didn't even want me at her wedding. Then you need to make her listen. Tommy gathered up the documents, put them back in the folder, slid it across the table to me. This is everything I have. Copies of everything. The originals are in a safe place. What you do with this is up to you. I looked at the folder. At 40 pages of evidence that could destroy the Ashford family. That could save Sarah or condemn her, depending on how I used it. Why are you giving this to me? Because you are her father. Because you deserve to know what kind of family your daughter married into. He finished his whiskey. And because I remember Da Nang. I remember what you did for Charlie Company when we were pinned down outside Hugh. You saved my life, Bob. Saved a lot of lives. I figure I owe you one. He stood up, put money on the table for both our drinks. One more thing, he said. Be careful, the Ashfords have connections. They have resources. If they think you are a threat, they won't just throw you out of a wedding. They'll destroy you, legally, financially, maybe worse. Let them try. Tommy smiled. Sad smile. There is the Bob Mitchell I remember. Just don't get yourself killed, okay? We lost too many good men in that jungle. I'd hate to lose another one to a bunch of criminals in suits. He walked out. I sat there for another 20 minutes. Drinking. Staring at that folder. Everything I'd planned had just changed. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This wasn't about getting back at Preston for humiliating me. This was about saving Sarah, my daughter, who'd cut me out of her life, who'd turned away from me at her own wedding, who thought I was an embarrassment. She was in danger. Real danger. The kind that ended with FBI raids and prison sentences and lives destroyed. And she had no idea. Preston knew. You don't work at a company for years without noticing the pattern, without asking questions about where certain accounts came from. He knew, and he'd married Sarah anyway, had let his father put a $6 million target on her back. That made this personal in a whole new way. I picked up the folder, left the bar. Back in my apartment, I spread everything out on my kitchen table. Documents, photos, bank statements, wire transfers. I organized it chronologically, built a timeline, started to see the pattern. The money laundering had been going on for at least 5 years, maybe longer. Millions of dollars flowing through Ashford Capital Management from sources that should have raised red flags. But William was smart. He never moved too much at once. Never made it obvious. Spread it across multiple accounts, multiple investments, multiple countries. And then, about a year ago, right around when Preston started dating Sarah seriously, something changed. The money started moving faster. More accounts opened. More shell companies created, like William knew something was coming. Like he was preparing for scrutiny. The FBI investigation must have started around then. Someone must have tipped William off. Someone inside law enforcement or inside one of the criminal organizations he worked with. That is when Preston proposed to Sarah, 2 months after William started moving assets. Not a coincidence? I found something else in Tommy's documents, an insurance policy. $10 million. Beneficiary, Preston Ashford. Insured, Sarah Mitchell Ashford. They'd taken out a life insurance policy on my daughter 3 months ago. $10 million if she died. I had to read it 3 times before it sank in. $10 million. My hands weren't shaking anymore. They were steady, ice-cold steady, the way they used to get before a mission. Before the shooting started, Preston hadn't just married Sarah to shield his family from investigation. He'd married her to create an exit strategy. If everything collapsed, if the FBI closed in, if the walls started closing in, Sarah was worth more to them dead than alive. I picked up my phone. "Did you see the insurance policy?" I asked when he answered. "Yay." "Is she in danger?" Long pause. "I don't know, Bob. Could be just standard wealthy people stuff. Rich families take out policies on each other all the time. For $10 million. It is a lot," he admitted. "But it doesn't necessarily mean, Tommy. Yes or no? Is my daughter in danger?" Another pause. "Longer this time. I think you should talk to her," he finally said. "Soon." I hung up, looked at all the evidence spread across my table, at the proof of crimes that should send the entire Ashford family to prison, at the insurance policy that made Sarah a liability instead of an asset. And I made a decision. I wasn't going to the FBI, not yet, because the FBI moved slow, built cases, took years, and Sarah might not have years. I wasn't going to confront Preston directly, because that would just make him defensive. make him dangerous. I was going to do what I did best, what the Marines had trained me to do for 3 years in Vietnam. I was going to run a covert operation, gather more intelligence, find Preston's weaknesses, build leverage. And when I had enough, when I had everything I needed, then I'd burn his entire world down. But carefully, surgically, in a way that saved Sarah and destroyed everyone who'd put her in danger, starting with Preston Ashford. I opened my notebook, started writing the plan. Operation Scorched Earth primary objective. Extract Sarah from Ashford family influence secondary objective. Expose William and Preston Ashford's criminal activities. Tertiary objective. Ensure Sarah's safety and legal protection phase 1. Deep intelligence gathering current. Phase 2. Asset identification and vulnerability assessment. Phase 3. Psychological warfare and relationship disruption phase 4. Legal strike. Evidence delivery to FBI phase 5. Extraction and protection protocol. I had 2 months. Before the FBI moved or before the Ashfords decided Sarah was a problem that needed solving. 2 months to become the father Sarah never knew she needed. The dangerous one. The competent one. The one who wouldn't let anyone hurt his little girl. Not even her husband. I spent the next 3 weeks becoming a ghost. Not the kind that disappears. The kind that watches, learns, waits. Every morning at 6:45 a.m., Preston left his house in Bloomfield Hills, drove his black Mercedes to the Ashford Capital offices downtown, parked in the executive garage, came out at 6:30 p.m. Sometimes later, twice he stopped at a bar called The Reserve. Leather chairs and $100 steaks. I watched from my car across the street, took notes, patterns, routines, weaknesses. Sarah didn't work. She stayed home, mostly. Sometimes she'd drive to the gym, sometimes to lunch with women who looked like they'd never worried about money in their lives. She looked tired in those moments when she thought nobody was watching. Looked smaller somehow. I wanted to approach her 100 times. Wanted to knock on her door and show her everything Tommy had given me. But I couldn't. Not yet. Because if Preston found out I'd made contact, if he knew what I knew, Sarah would be in more danger than she already was. So I watched. Week 2, I followed Preston to a meeting that wasn't on his calendar. Warehouse district on the east side. Not the kind of place executives in $1,000 suits usually visited. He met with 3 men. One of them was Vincent Calabrese from Tommy's photos. The other 2 I didn't recognize. They talked for 20 minutes. I was too far away to hear, but I got photos, license plates, faces. Sent them to Tommy that night. He called me back within an hour. Bob, you need to be careful. The guy on the left is Anton Volkov, Russian mob. The other one is Marcus Webb. He is FBI. My blood went cold. FBI. Dirty FBI. He has been under investigation himself for the past year. Looks like the Ashfords have someone inside law enforcement feeding them information. That explained how William always stayed 1 step ahead. How he knew when to move money, when to hide evidence. There is more, Tommy said. I did some checking on that life insurance policy. It was Marcus Webb who recommended the company. He is connected to the insurance broker. Bob, I think they're planning something. How long do I have? I don't know, but if I were you, I'd move fast. I hung up, looked at my notebook. At 3 weeks of surveillance and planning. Time to shift to phase 3. I started small. Anonymous tips. Carefully worded. Untraceable. I sent an email to the IRS flagging Ashford Capital Management for audit. Included just enough detail to make them take it seriously without revealing how much I actually knew. I sent information about Marcus Webb to the FBI's Internal Affairs Division. No names. No accusations. Just questions. Just enough to make them look closer. I planted doubt. Then I went after Preston directly. I knew Preston played golf every Saturday morning at Oakland Hills Country Club. Exclusive, members only. The kind of place where deals got made over 18 holes. I couldn't get in, but I didn't need to. Walked right up to him before he could get to his car. "Hello, Preston." He froze, hand on his car door. Then he turned slowly. His face went through several expressions. Surprise, confusion, then anger. "What the hell are you doing here? We need to talk." "No, we don't. I told you to stay away from Sarah, from us." "It is not about Sarah." I kept my voice calm. "Level, it is about your father." Something flickered in his eyes. Fear. Just for a second. Then it was gone. "I don't know what you are talking about." "Yes, you do." I stepped closer. Not threatening, just close enough. "I know about Vincent Calabrese. I know about the money laundering, all of it." Preston's face went pale. Actually pale. He glanced around the parking lot. Nobody was close enough to hear us. "You are crazy," he said. But his voice shook. "You are a crazy old man making up stories, am I?" I pulled out my phone, showed him a photo. Him and Vincent at the warehouse. Clear as day. Because I have documentation, bank records, wire transfers. Enough to put your father in prison for 20 years. Maybe you too." His hand was shaking now. I could see it, see the fear spreading across his face like a stain. "What do you want?" "I want Sarah out. I want a divorce. I want her name off every property, every account, every piece of paper that connects her to your family. And I want it done quietly, quickly, before the FBI shows up at your door." "She won't agree to that. She loves me." "Then make her agree. Tell her whatever you need to tell her, but get her out before your whole family goes down." Preston was breathing hard now, sweating despite the cool October air. "You can't prove any of this." "I don't have to prove it. I just have to give what I have to the FBI. Let them prove it." "But Sarah's name is on a lot of documents. Preston, when they come for your father, they'll come for her too, unless she is already gone." I could see him calculating, see his mind racing through options, trying to find a way out. "How do I know you won't go to the FBI anyway?" "You don't? But I give you my word. Get Sarah out clean, and I'll give you 1 week to run before I hand everything over. 1 week head start. Take it or leave it." He stared at me, see him weighing his options. "I need time," he finally said. "You have 72 hours. After that, I make a phone call." I walked away, didn't look back. Got in my car and drove home with my heart pounding so hard, I thought it might explode. The next 3 days were the longest of my life. I waited for Preston to call. 60 hours passed, then 70, then 71. I was reaching for my phone to call the FBI when my doorbell rang. Sarah was standing outside my apartment. I opened the door. We stared at each other. I hadn't seen her this close since the wedding. She looked older, tired. Her eyes were red like she'd been crying. "Can I come in?" I stepped aside. She walked in, looked around at my small apartment, at the life I'd built without her. "Preston told me what you said to him. Sarah, is it true?" She turned to face me. "Is his family really? Are they criminals?" I could have lied, could have softened it, but she deserved the truth. "Yes." She sat down on my couch, put her face in her hands, started crying. The kind that shakes your whole body. I sat next to her, didn't touch her, didn't know if I was allowed to anymore. "I didn't know," she whispered. "I swear to God, Dad, I didn't know." "I know you didn't," Preston said. He said his father made some mistakes, but it wasn't that bad. He said you were exaggerating because you hate him, because you want to break us up. Is that what you think? She looked at me. Really looked at me for the first time in 3 years. I don't know what to think anymore. Preston's been different lately. Stressed. Angry. I thought it was just work pressure, but she wiped her eyes. There is a house in my name. He said it was a wedding gift from his father, but I never signed anything. Never even saw the paperwork until yesterday. $6 million, I said quietly. Her eyes widened. How did you know? Because I've been investigating your husband's family for 3 weeks, because I have documentation of every crime they've committed, because I know exactly how much danger you are in. I got up, got the folder Tommy had given me, set it on the table in front of her. Read it, I said. All of it? And then decide if you still want to stay married to Preston Ashford. She read for an hour. I made coffee. Saturday in silence. Watched her face change as she turned page after page. Watched her realize what her life had become. When she finished, she just sat there, staring at nothing. They took out a life insurance policy on me, she said. Her voice was flat. Empty. $10 million. Yes. Preston told me it was standard, that all wealthy families do it. It is not standard. She looked up at me. Do you think would he actually? I don't know, I said honestly, but I am not willing to find out. Silence, long silence. Then, I am sorry. The words hit me harder than any punch ever had. For what? For cutting you out. For the wedding. For everything. Tears again. Preston said you were unstable, that you had PTSD and you might hurt me. He said I needed to protect myself, protect our future. And I believed him. I believed him over you. I sat down next to her, put my hand on her shoulder, felt her lean into it. You were trying to build a life, I said. That is not a crime. I should have known better, should have seen the signs. But I was so desperate to be part of something normal, something that wasn't broken. I wasn't a good father, I said. After your mother died, I didn't know how to be what you needed. I am sorry for that. You were sick. You needed help, and I was too young to understand. You were 14 and calling ambulances. No kid should have to do that. We sat there in my small apartment, two broken people trying to figure out how to fix something that had been shattered years ago. What do I do? Sarah finally asked. You leave tonight. You pack a bag and you come stay here. Tomorrow we call a lawyer, file for divorce, get your name off every document that connects you to the Ashfords. He won't let me go. He doesn't get a choice. And if he tries to stop you, if he threatens you, if he does anything. I looked at her. Let her see the Marine I used to be. I'll handle it. She smiled. My dangerous dad. When I need to be. She stood up. Okay. I'll go pack. But Preston's home. He won't just let me walk out. Then I am coming with you. We drove to Bloomfield Hills in my car. The house was massive. White columns, circular driveway. The kind of place I'd only seen in movies. Preston's Mercedes was in the driveway. Maybe I should go alone, Sarah said. Not a chance. We walked to the front door together. Sarah used her key. Preston was in the living room. Saw us come in. His face went dark. What is he doing here? I am leaving, Sarah said. Her voice was stronger than I expected. I want a divorce. Number simple as that, like she'd ask permission instead of making a statement. No, you are not. Preston, you don't get to just leave. You are my wife. This is your home. He has been filling your head with lies. I read the documents, she interrupted. I know about your father, about the money laundering, about Marcus Webb, About all of it. Preston looked at me, pure hatred in his eyes. You couldn't just disappear, could you? Couldn't just accept that you lost. I didn't lose anything, I said. You did. The FBI is closing in. Your father's going to prison. And if you are smart, you'll let Sarah go before she goes down with you. You think you are so tough, Preston said, moving closer now, getting aggressive. You think because you were in the military 40 years ago, that makes you dangerous. You are nothing. You are a broken-down old man living in a shithole apartment on disability. Preston, stop, Sarah said. But he wasn't listening. He was in my face now, close enough that I could smell the whiskey on his breath. You want to play soldier. Want to pretend you are some kind of hero. You are pathetic. Sarah was embarrassed by you. Ashamed, she told me that. Told me she wished you'd just... I hit him. One punch. Clean. Professional. Right to the solar plexus. He went down gasping. Sarah screamed. Not afraid. Shocked. I stood over Preston, watched him try to breathe. You are right, I said quietly. But I am also a Marine who spent 3 years in hell learning how to hurt people. And if you ever threaten my daughter again, if you ever try to stop her from leaving, I will show you exactly what I learned in that jungle. Do you understand me? He nodded. Couldn't speak, just nodded. Good. You are going to let her pack her things. You are going to sign whatever divorce papers her lawyer sends you. And you are going to pray I keep my word about giving you a week before I call the FBI. I helped Sarah pack 2 suitcases. Some clothes, some photos. She took her mother's jewelry, left everything Preston had given her. We drove away from that house and I didn't look back. That was 6 months ago. Preston signed the papers, didn't fight, didn't contest anything. Too afraid of what I might do, what I might reveal. 2 weeks after Sarah moved out, the FBI raided Ashford Capital Management. Arrested Marcus Webb. Arrested Vincent Calabrese and 4 others. Preston wasn't charged. Claimed he didn't know about his father's activities. Maybe that is true. Maybe it is not. But without Sarah's name on those documents, without her connected to the evidence, they couldn't touch her. The accounts frozen. Everything the Ashfords had built over 30 years disappeared in a single day. William Ashford is in federal prison awaiting trial, looking at 25 to life. Preston disappeared. Word is, he is somewhere in the Caymans, living on whatever money he managed to hide before everything collapsed. I hope he is miserable. Sarah lives in a small apartment now, 2 bedrooms, works at a library, makes enough to get by, says she is happier than she has been in years. We have dinner every Sunday. Sometimes we talk. Sometimes we just sit in comfortable silence, slowly rebuilding what was broken. Last week she told me she is thinking about going back to school. Wants to be a teacher. I told her I'd help pay for it. She cried, said she didn't deserve my help after everything. I told her that is what fathers do. We help. Even when it is hard. Even when we don't know how. We show up. She hugged me. Really hugged me. First time in 5 years. Sometimes at night I think about Preston. About the fear in his eyes when I hit him. About how easy it would have been to do more. To hurt him worse. But that is not who I am anymore. I am not the soldier who learned to hurt people in Vietnam. I am not the broken veteran who scared his daughter with nightmares and pills. I am just a father who protected his child, who learned how to show up when it mattered. And that is enough. The Marines taught me how to fight, how to survive, how to complete a mission no matter the cost. But Sarah taught me something more important. She taught me how to forgive, how to rebuild, how to be the father I should have been all along. Some battles you win with violence, with strategy, with force. But the battles that matter, The ones that actually change your life, those you win with love and patience. And showing up, even when nobody wants you there.